In this video, we'll discuss the most common questions women ask on a first date, what they really mean, why women ask them, and how to answer them correctly. How long have you been single? Why does a woman care about this? Because if you broke up 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's almost impossible to take your communication, your getting to know each other, seriously. What if you make up with your ex tomorrow? When a woman asks this question, she wants to make sure that your story with your ex is over. But there's another extreme. If you say that your last relationship ended 3 or 4 years ago, that will also raise some suspicion. What have you been doing all this time? Running around with different women, and now you want to fool me too? That's the first thing that comes to her mind. Therefore, the ideal answer, of course, is that you broke up about 6 months ago, but by no means state an exact date. Seriously, I'm not a fan of lying. You can deceive anyone. When a lie isn't exposed quickly, I still stop trusting that person. It happens unconsciously. You just feel that you definitely shouldn't trust this person. To slightly embellish or omit a little in the course of communication, in the course of getting to know someone, that's okay. That's understandable. But lying is definitely not worth it. Why did you and your ex break up? Through this question, a woman will simply assess your adequacy. If you say, she was an idiot, then why did you choose her in the first place? So, no emotional evaluations. Even if you want to talk to the girl about this topic, about your ex, in the future, remove any negativity. Just state the facts. Yes, my ex was like that. Yes, I chose someone like that. The second mistake when answering this question is when a man reveals that he's still not over the story. He takes a deep breath, looks away, and tragically contemplates something, or even says that it was a complicated relationship story. A man quickly gives away his anxiety or insincerity by changing his intonation, facial expressions, mood, and pace of speech. This leaves an unpleasant impression. The third mistake is when a woman asks you why you and your ex broke up, and you say, well, it was a complicated story, we had different personalities, we reached a dead end and realized it was better to break up. What about you? Such abstract, vague answers don't convey any sense of sincerity. Everyone understands that you simply didn't want to tell the story as it really was, and such communication has always strongly repelled me. What's the point of going on a date and hiding something? It just seems like nonsense. The fourth unpleasant mistake is when a man, in response to this question, tries to appear cool. He says, I didn't like how my ex behaved. She allowed herself too much. I put her in her place. I decided to end it, and I dumped her. There's a saying that a barking dog doesn't bite. It works like that in everything. If a person tries to show everyone, to prove their genius, then in reality they consider themselves foolish. If they try to appear strong, it means they feel weak. If they try to appear tough, it means they are actually soft. When a person has an element of congruence, they are too lazy to prove anything. Such a person is even prone to downplaying their achievements. Strong people say there are stronger than them. Smart people most often consider themselves very ordinary, and people of saintly life have always considered themselves the worst sinners. You may have encountered this when a girl starts to prove to you, even brag, about being loyal and that she would never cheat. Others might, but she wouldn't. This is a very alarming sign. If everything she says were true, it wouldn't occur to her to brag about it and say it out loud to highlight it as an advantage. Her loyalty as an advantage implies she could have acted differently. A person most often praises themselves where they fall short. You don't need to put all this fluff on yourself. There's nothing shameful in telling a girl on a date, well, yes, my ex let me down in a difficult life situation, and your ideas about relationships really turned out to be different. And if you want, you can specify how. If you want someone to start trusting you and sharing personal information, then start doing it first. How do you spend your free time? It's important to understand here that there's simply no right answer. Why? Because a woman simply wants to compare her pace of life, her social activity, and interests with your lifestyle. She's asking you, what do you do and what do you like, in the hope of finding those points of connection. A woman analyzes and wants to understand if your lifestyles can synchronize. We understand that one girl likes to bake cupcakes for her man at home, while another can't live without a vacation in the Maldives. One woman leads a secluded lifestyle. Hustle and bustle simply make her feel bad, while another needs to be the center of attention in a noisy company. And if she doesn't post a story on time, withdrawal symptoms begin. The right answer is one that simply matches her interests. And here, you'll have to tell the truth. There's no point in lying. It happens too often when a man tries to calibrate himself, pretending that what interests her also interests him. He starts constantly going with the girl, visiting places, exhibitions, theaters, museums, and before meeting her, he only went fishing, to the gym, and played computer games. But after some time, usually 6 months to a year, the man simply reverts to his basic behavior. And this will happen sooner or later. It doesn't happen any other way. And that's it. The relationship says, error, boring. He will suffer because of it later. Who do you live with? Often a woman will ask a man, a little later, who do you live with? This question is most often asked by women who have moved to a big city. Why does she ask it? Because her plans probably don't include paying rent for an apartment her whole life. She needs to settle down in a big city. And of course, a man with his own place is freedom. Bad. Such a predatory view of dating is bad. It happens that women ask this to assess the degree of male immaturity. It is generally believed that if a man lives alone, he is mature, and if he lives with his parents, he is always a mama's boy. However, this is not the case in 100% of cases. There are many examples where a man not only lives alone but earned the money for his apartment from scratch, yet is infantile on many life issues in general. There are examples where a man is forced to live with his parents, but no obvious immaturity has been noted in him. Therefore, there is no need to be embarrassed by this question. Answer as is. If it somehow plays negatively in the dating process, perhaps such a woman is not particularly needed. No great loss, as they say. There are also questions that a woman would like to ask on a date, but cannot. What are we talking about? To understand this, you need to put yourself in a woman's shoes. You're opposite a handsome man who speaks well, perhaps courts beautifully, but there's a risk that after one night, he'll simply disappear. What does a woman most often do in such situations? She tries to somehow slow down, dampen her feelings, forces herself to be wary. At the same time, asking you directly makes no sense at all. She tries to understand this through indirect signs. And this, by the way, is a very interesting nuance. For a man to fall in love with a woman, he doesn't need to trust her at all. It's not about trust at all. Why trust? But for a normal woman to love a person, trust is necessary. What do you do for work? Most often this is a mercenary question, but not always. Sometimes a woman is just curious. To understand if it's a mercenary question, answer, but don't state a specific position. That is, don't say you're a lead specialist or head of a department. Just say, I work at a bank or at a transportation company. You state the field of activity, but you don't give any information by which one could calculate or understand your income. If the interest is mercenary, the woman will immediately or a little later start asking some additional questions by which this could be estimated. It will all become clear through her. And here's what's important to know about money. If you notice on a date that your interlocutor thinks unrealistically, she wants to find everything and immediately. This means that she will not meet your expectations. Why aren't you married if you're over 30 and you look good and aren't dumb? Of course, a woman will ask, why aren't you married? Why haven't you been married yet? All you need to do in such a situation is to find a way to reassure the woman and convincingly explain why this has happened in your life. What kind of girls do you like? Your answer will quickly reveal what kind of person you are. If, when answering this question, you primarily describe physical appearance, the woman immediately understands that she's dealing with a love-obsessed individual, and she knows exactly where to apply pressure. You're showing her your weakness. If you emphasize a woman's ability to entertain you, it's pretty much the same thing. She shouldn't be boring, she should constantly be self-improving, and she absolutely must have a good sense of humor. Just imagine, you walk into a large car dealership and they ask you, "What kind of car do you need?" And you say, "A beautiful one, and with soft seats." The manager looks at you like you're an idiot and says, "Where do you plan to drive?" A car is chosen for a purpose. What do you want? What are your plans? I want to tell you the same thing. If you're looking for a woman for a relationship, then a sense of humor or many other aspects shouldn't come first. It happens that when answering this question, a man reels off a whole list of mutually exclusive qualities. I want her to be beautiful, modest, a little naughty, loyal, ambitious, gentle. He doesn't understand that it's much simpler to combine the endurance of a marathon runner, the explosive power of a weightlifter, and the agility of an acrobat. When answering this question, it is necessary to check the search criteria for adequacy. If a man states that he is picking a wife for a romantic escapade, how can such a person be trusted? What is there to talk about with him? What prospects are we even discussing here? You need to think about this. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that a first date is not only an opportunity to get to know each other, but also a kind of test of sincerity and adequacy. When answering common female questions, it is important to avoid extremes. Do not lie, but also do not reveal too much personal information, maintain a positive attitude towards past relationships, and do not try to appear to be someone you are not. Remember that the ideal answer to a question about free time is one that aligns with your true interests and can find common ground with the girl's interests. When it comes to housing, don't be shy, but answer honestly, as this will show your maturity and honesty. As for work, it's better to state your field of activity without going into details about your income to avoid mercenary interests. And for the question about the reasons for not being married after 30, it's important to give a convincing and calm explanation. Finally, when describing your ideal girl, focus on her qualities as a partner, not just her appearance or ability to entertain, demonstrating your seriousness and adequacy in seeking a relationship. Sincerity, openness, and honesty are the key principles that will help you make a good impression and build trusting relationships.